So we are on lesson 10, the human connection, how to communicate effectively. It would be amiss if I didn't quickly go over this, as it is vital to your college success. It's one of the most effective lessons that you can learn, and it is something that you can learn to improve upon. As humans, we're bound to be social. It is one of those things that we need to learn how to, it's foundational actually. We need to learn how to convey messages, receive messages, get our point across, have others understand what we're saying. So communication, the human connection, is key to personal success as well as career success. The most often thought about communication or type of communication is verbal communication or speaking. While it is very important that we know how to speak clearly, concisely, and get our point across, our message, our meaning, there are ways that we can learn how to do this. In class, you are expected, whether it's said to you or not, but you are just expected to engage in discussion. Some of you might have the personality of being more quiet or timid, and that's okay to have that personality, but still, your input is expected. It is necessary within the classroom environment. It makes you part of the community as our little classroom community, and it helps you build skills for the future. You are expected to ask questions. That's almost ironic that I would even have to mention that, because if you don't know something, it would be assumed that you would ask to either clarify what you don't understand. Some students don't, so make sure that you either ask questions of the instructor, of the group, just to make sure that you are understanding everything. When you are developing your communication skills, and I'm talking about your speaking skills specifically, there are ways you can do this, and it takes a little bit of practice, but you need to introduce whatever topic, especially if you're giving a presentation in front of a group, which you will get practice in doing. You need to make sure your topic is clear, it's specific, that people understand what you're talking about, and having the ability to form your words in a clear and concise way. That takes a little bit of planning, especially when you're presenting, because you have to think about what you're going to say and then how you're going to say it, because you don't want to add confusion. You want to make sure your message that does get across is getting across correctly. The correct tone, how you say it, how you speak it. Now, my father had like one tone for everything. Authoritative, perhaps. Very harsh. Some people have a very mild or meek tone all the time. Learn how to adjust your tone to your environment. So how you say something is just as important as what you say. If you're giving a presentation or you're just speaking to someone casually or in a small group or any kind of group discussion, remember, if they ask you questions, they didn't quite understand what you said. So learn how to maybe restate what they asked you so that you understand what they're asking, and then clarify it or say it in a different way. And use the correct language register. In other words, know who you're talking to, what environment, what social setting, public or private, what environment you're talking to, what the topic is about. When you are talking to your friends, and I don't know if I've said this before, in a casual environment, your words with your friends, your peers, are only like a 400 to 800 word vocabulary. And that's all you typically use. So it's a very limited vocabulary. When you're talking or presenting, you want to expand, use more formal words and correct sentence grammar within your presentation or your discussion. So make sure you're using the correct language register. That means when you talk to a professor, you're talking differently or more formal or more correctly than you would to your casual friend. But there's more ways than speaking, right, to communicate? When I say communication, besides speaking, what else do you think of? So how else can you communicate? Nonverbal, which is what? Body language, which I'm looking around right now at body language, okay? I've often said, I know what you're getting out of what I'm saying just by looking at you. Also, besides body language, there's listening. Now, wait a minute. I can communicate by listening? Yes. Listening is just as important as speaking. You might have heard the term, we have 2 ears and 1 mouth. So many times listening is actually more important than speaking. But we call this active listening. There's a skill to listening, and you must develop the patience to learn how to listen correctly. So active listening shows respect, number 1, to the person who's talking. Whether it's a teacher, a friend, you're focused on them. You're actually listening to not just hear, but listening to understand and think about what they're saying. You have to mentally process what the other person is saying and thinking about it, and then restate back what they said. You know, they do this a lot in counseling when couples or family members are going through a tough time or relationship issues, and the counselor will just sit with them, have one person talk, and the other person has to active listen and then restate what the first person said. Say, did I hear you correctly? I'm going to restate it. Because a lot of problems come up because we're not actively listening. We're not hearing and understanding what the other person is saying. Other forms of nonverbal communication, as was mentioned, is body language. I can tell if you're active listening. I say, if your eyes are on me, I know you're paying attention. If your eyes are adrift somewhere else, so goes your mind. Other thoughts. So how you use your body to communicate, or your facial, your smile. I can look at your faces as you come in the morning and kind of gather through your body language, your facial expressions, how you're feeling today. So be aware of your facial expressions, your eye contact. When you're giving a presentation, when you're speaking to others, are you aware of what your body's doing? Have you ever seen, or maybe it's been you in the past, when you give a speech and they're real nervous and they might shake? So you learn how to control your body so people are able to focus on what you're saying. Hand, arm gestures, your body postures, how you carry yourself can say a lot about you. So this is another way to effectively communicate. Writing. Writing is a form of communication. When you're writing, remember, it is written down. It is permanent. Basically, if you send it through email or text, use the right tone. Be careful of the tone you use. You don't want your message to come across differently than what you intended. So always double check what you're writing to make sure you have used the correct tone, even in writing. Be specific. In other words, get to the point. Be specific of your message. In emails, follow protocol and who you're writing to. We've talked about that a little bit. If you're writing to a professor, the correct greetings, the grammar and sentence formula needs to be correct because it says a lot about you on how you write. And if you ever receive communication, make sure you respond promptly. For example, if you receive an email from your professor wondering where an assignment is and you don't follow up, you don't respond to them, that leaves a bad impression, but actually it's a huge response. So see, no response is actually a response, and it's the wrong one. It gives a response of, well, I don't care, or I'm not gonna get back to you. So make sure you always respond in a timely manner. So quick summary on communication, that human connection. When speaking, be clear, be concise so that you can get your message across correctly to others. Use the correct language register to your audience, whether it's just talking to students or your professor. Ask questions. This might really surprise you, but contrary to what you might believe, professors cannot read your mind. You've got to speak it, communicate it. Listen to others for clarity and understanding. Make sure you understand what they're saying. If not, go back to the asking questions part or restate it. Pay attention to what your body is saying, how your body gives a message. Bored, nervous, upset. When you write, the written word should convey correct tone and be very precise. Follow correct protocol and use correct grammar when writing. And lastly, respond promptly to all written communication that you do receive from instructors. Communication is a skill, like getting upon a bicycle, right? And learning how to ride that bike is a skill you learn. And if you're willing to work at it, you can rapidly and so much improve the quality of every part of your life. Listen, your communication is very vital to your college success, but beyond that, in your career, it's a sought after. Employers are searching for workers who know how to communicate effectively to others and in the workplace.